Back in 2016, Ubisoft released The Division, the long-awaited MMO RPG, if that's what you want to call it, or just online RPG or MORPG or whatever. It doesn't even really matter what you want to call it. The fact is, The Division came out, and I sunk hours into that game. I sunk hours into that. I even was so addicted to that game just based off of the beta that people that I met inside of the beta, I had talked to them about doing a weekly Division podcast talking about what's going on in the game and everything else. We did a couple episodes. It kind of petered apart, which is fine, but we still continue to play the game. And the game is one that I look back on fondly, even though it has a number of problems. The Division 2 comes out here in about 2 months, and that's going to be a big game in and of itself. I'm actually debating how much time I want to attempt to spend in it, if at all, in the early stages, just because my time limitations now are far different than they were a few years ago. But what's interesting now is we're learning more about the dark zones and how it's going to be implemented. And now that there are multiple levels of dark zones that are going to give you basically a little bit different of an experience, so you're not all lumped together into one area fighting players that are insanely more powerful than you and ganking your shit when you go to extract. So in an article here, it says the Division 2 will have 3 dark zones with AI turrets on the doors to protect the innocent. I love that they phrased it like that. I love that they phrased it like protect the innocent, because that's one of the biggest problems. If you recall, in the first Division, you would die, you would respawn, you would go back in, and there might be some asshole waiting there for you. Yeah, that was fun, right? That was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun with the guy sitting there waiting there to take you out as soon as you exited the area. Thankfully, I mean, if at all else, if nothing else worked, you could always exit, and then there was always another entry point in on the other side of the map. It just took you a little bit of time to get there, but at the same time, there was definitely that. It goes on to say here that the Division's original Dark Zone was sort of a no-holds-barred no man's land that offered both PvE combat against high-level NPCs and PvP combat against agents who've gone rogue. Essentially, high risk, high reward. Now, the Division 2, which arrives in March, will have 3 distinct dark zones, Ubisoft said in an update. Each of these zones will be located in a separate part of Washington, D.C., with its own stories to tell. What I like about that, what I really like about that, is the fact that what we get to see are 3 different areas on the map that are going to be dark zones. So it's not all lumped into one area, because if you, in the original game, it was one key part, central part of New York, really, where you would have different levels. I think 1 to 6, if I recall. It's been a couple of years since I played it. But you would, as the further into it you got, the harder the enemies got, the better the loot got, and that's usually where you would find some higher end players, unless they were, being jerks in the lower areas. But you'd get a fair amount of that regardless. Now, the Division 2's Dark Zones will give players a more nuanced way to go rogue. Instead of just shooting your fellow agents, you can earn the lowest level of naughty designation by breaking into a locked chest or swiping a DZ drop. This twist will the twist is that your selfishness will also reveal a hidden signal that can be followed by undertaking more roguish behavior to the Thieves' Den, which contains a unique vendor with tempting wares and will also wipe your rogue status. That to me is a bit interesting, and not entirely in a good way, if I'm being honest here. So you can break into a locked chest in the Dark Zone, which is kind of a free-for-all, no-holds-barred, no man's land, right? And that gives you a negative/naughty rating. Makes very little sense to me. That is, unless that chest is there for somebody else. I don't know. Or you can swipe a Dark Zone drop. But again, is it, if a Dark Zone drop would be a Dark Zone drop, I mean, you figure that'd be open for anybody. So what exactly is it inside there that's going to make it so that makes you bad? And then you go to a Thieves' Den that's got other wares and they can wipe your not. It just, I don't know. I get they're trying to kind of ease you into being rogue, to going rogue, right? Whereas before it was kind of like, if you, it was a lot easier to get into manhunt mode in the first game, especially if, if you were just being a complete jerk. But here it feels like they're trying to ease you into that a little bit. I don't know. I'm not really feeling it, but it goes on. So the change for the sequel is that there's going to be more rogue states in the Division 2. Thievery is an entry-level position. You can attack other players, and they can do the same to you. Once you've killed another player, you're upgraded to a disavowed rogue, which sticks you with a red icon that makes you much more visible If you've killed a whole bunch of agents, then you enter Manhunt Rogue, which places a big bounty on your head and alerts other players to your presence. Now, that was what I liked about the first game, was when someone went rogue, it would on the map instantaneously, and you would just see people stop and make a beeline for that person, because that's like, ooh, it's a party. Ooh, we're going to do this. And then everyone would make a run for that guy, and it would turn into a gigantic shitfest that would ultimately, result in a lot of other people going rogue. Or if that person knew where to hide, because there were a couple of places that you could in fact hide, and essentially completely, cover yourself until the other team gets bored from trying to kill you. There were literally hideout spots that you could survive indefinitely, because your health would keep regenerating and your gear would keep regenerating, and you'd be able to continuously take out anyone coming up a ladder to come and get you, and no one else could do it. So I'm hoping they find those little nooks and crannies and make sure that you can't sit there and back yourself into a corner and hide out indefinitely. Now, it goes on to say here that the Division 2 Dark Zones will also sometimes drop clean loot, which means you'll be able to equip it right away without having to extract it and survive the risk of it being to get it decontaminated. This is a pretty big and welcome change, because basically losing sweet gear because a bunch of kids ganked you in the Dark Zone and then laughed at what a scrub you are over local chat really sucks. Yeah, those are some annoying times, right? Those are some very annoying times. I've been in the Dark Zone. I get some good, some good loot, some good gear. I'm ready to go extract it. My team makes our way to go and call in the helicopter. We got to wait. And then all of a sudden, again, because it pops up on the map, there is a high amount of being attacked by other players. And it is a hell of a firefight, a hell of a thing that ends up really just becoming annoying as hell. But unfortunately, it looks like they're trying to make it a little bit easier, right? By having clean loot drop in the Dark Zone and allowing I don't know, again, it feels like they're taking away like the edge from the first game. They've obviously listened to a lot of complaints about it. They've obviously listened to a lot of people go like, I don't like that. I'm not a fan of that whatsoever. I don't think that's a good idea. And they want to make sure that people don't do that all the time. And they want to make sure that you can, in fact, get something if you are being, like, let's say, griefed by other players. But at the same time, that is the entire point of the Dark Zone. That is the entire point of the damn Dark Zone, is to be griefed by other players. You enter in at your own risk, and trying to make it a little bit easier, a little bit nicer, a little bit more survival friendly, I feel like it just kind of takes away from the overall aspect of it. But that's not to say that, that's the entire Dark Zone. They are going to be creating a real big no man's land. Because it goes on to say here that during the end game, players will eventually encounter occupied Dark Zones, which are not normalized. And these locations might absolutely make right. Friendly fire will also be on in occupied Dark Zones, and there will be no rogue markers to tell you who the bad guys are. Saying here, if you're having visions of getting jumped by other players immediately upon entering a Dark Zone, fear not. Your first visit to the Dark Zone will be a PvE mission, so you'll only have enemy factions to worry about. These missions will give you a chance to learn how the Dark Zone works, and then try to get to know the lay of the land. And that's good. That's good. And they're also going to be adding in Team Deathmatch. They're going to be adding in Dominion modes on 3 custom maps. Finally, adding in what I think a lot of players wanted from the Division. Now, I don't know if after a while in the Division they added in multiplayer modes that are just standard TDM and things like that. But that's something a lot of fans, a lot of players really wanted, because they enjoyed the combat, they enjoyed the gameplay mechanics. They wanted to apply it to a multiplayer based experience that wasn't, centered around collecting loot and surviving in a PvE environment, or PvE situation. So that's interesting here. But they're also going to be adding in turrets to protect you from when you go out into right into the Dark Zone, and I think that's going to be good. That I actually agree with. Of all the things that they've said here, I'm 100% on board with these players getting the access, getting the ability to kind of get into the Dark Zone without being, completely ambushed at the door. But at the same time, I will admit that's kind of hypocritical of me, because I'm sitting there complaining about them making the Dark Zone easier because it's designed to be kind of a grief central area, and yet they're removing something about it that is griefing. It's not like they're not putting turrets everywhere. You attack anyone, you get shot. It's a little bit easier. but hopefully the Division 2 will be a lot of fun. There's a beta coming out on February 7th. I definitely plan on getting my hands on that. I will be streaming that and then definitely talking about that. The Division is, again, one of my favorite games from 2016. Or no, was it 2015 or 2016? I forget. It's been a while. But Ubisoft is pretty much my favorite third-party developer at this point. So I really, really always support pretty much whatever they have coming out. And I leave it to you. What do you think? You think Division 2 is going to be an upgrade over the first Division? Do you think the Dark Zones are now going to be more fun because they're going to be kind of varied and spaced out? Or do you think this is just a way to cater to the casuals so they don't get too upset and stop playing? I'm curious to know your thoughts. Let me know down in the comments below. I'll talk to you guys later. Have yourself a great day, and peace out. Hey, thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. Since you're here, why don't leave a comment? Let me know what you think about stuff. If you want to subscribe to the channel, you can do that as well. You check out any of these great, fantastic, amazing commentary tracks by me. That's right. I'm not egotistical or narcissistic at all. I'm just your average, everyday, normal YouTuber. Thanks for watching.